Dee Dee, you and I sat, we talked in the store in the early days, first few days. Could you have ever imagined? Could you have ever imagined what we saw last year?
No. I mean, I think the worst case scenario I had in my head was like 2 months. Like I was thinking like, we'll be locked down for 2 months, we won't be able to function, everything will kind of be a little bit of hot garbage for 2 months, and then we'll all get back to it by summer. Like literally, I remember thinking that thought, and a friend was like, no, it's gonna be a year. And I thought, oh, we'll all be out of business.
Yeah.
Like there won't be any downtown Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
And like, thank God we got a lot of really good help with the business and with like from the federal government, like, you know, with our SBA loan and all kinds of stuff that helped keep us afloat. But I mean, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. Absolutely no idea.
Well, and I can remember, I mean, you really literally, it was day in, day out, we're trying to figure out what do we do next? How do we do it? How do we stay safe? And there was just, and none of us knew. We didn't know how we could even, we didn't want to get infected.
No, and that was the big part, right? Because you knew nothing. Like, so now we know a lot, right? We know that, you know, our masks help, and even double masking is great. Yeah. We know that fomites aren't as big a deal anymore. Like, we were like, you know, we're still obsessively washing everything just in case they change that. But, you know, we didn't know the transmission rates. We didn't know who had it, or what the symptoms were, or what the death rates really were. And so it was like, you kind of went into this going like, I don't know what to do to keep myself safe. I don't know what to do to keep my employees safe. And all the changes you had to make on your feet. And I told my husband this morning, we were talking about something, because I literally like carried a deodorant somewhere weird in my house and put it somewhere weird. And I said, whatever the opposite of like somebody who likes everything the same every day is what I am. So I think I'm like an agent of chaos, right? So I actually kind of enjoy chaos and enjoy challenges. I don't know what that says about me as a human being, but this was even too much for somebody who enjoys chaos. Yeah. You know, because I genuinely think like, oh, change and challenge and like something like that is, you know, different happening every day is kind of exciting and fun, right? This was too much even for me. It's too much even for me. So I can't even imagine people who were like love order and love things to be orderly, how they managed. Like I think about that all the time. Like my manager here, Crystal, I love her to pieces, and she's the most orderly person ever, and she had the worst time with the whole thing because you can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was it. And you did a really good job. I mean, you on the fly came up with a lot of things, whether you did videos, you did Facebook Live, you did a lot of hands-on stuff out here, and you really were able to. Did you surprise yourself sometimes?
I mean, yes and no. So I surprised myself in my ability to do it quickly. Like I always have so I'm severely ADHD. You may not know this about me, but
we'll get a couch and talk about this.
You could probably tell. And so, you know, I have a million ideas floating in my head all the time, right? I call them my bees. They hang out, like a bee will buzz forward, and I'll be like, oh. And sometimes it'll happen in the middle of a conversation with somebody, like I'll be talking to you and then suddenly I'll start talking about something completely different. It's just how my brain works. So like, it wasn't that I had lack of ideas. I've always had ideas. Some of the ideas that we used were ideas I already had, and I just didn't have time to execute. So there was a little bit of beauty to the whole occasion because it kind of forced my hand on some of those things. What I was really proud and astonished by was how well all of us did as a team and how much we all worked together, because that was so necessary for success. You know, we all had to like get together to make kits and film things and arrange rooms and make, you know, deliveries and, you know, batten down schedules. And like you've used all the back end for all the things we did, like the spreadsheets and all the order forms and the calculations that we had to do. That was the stuff that like makes my head hurt really bad. And like, you know, the team was able to come together and kind of make it happen and make it work. And I'm really proud of us for that. I'm like astonished that we were able to do it under the stressful circumstances. Like the team is amazing. Like we have the most incredible staff in Fredericksburg, I think. Like the people here are just amazing.
And that was those kind of stories that come out of this, that you kind of look and you say, you know, that's a great story to be able to tell and something to really be able to have learned from the last year.
Yeah, I mean it is I say jokingly to my fellow business owners, like we can say we have a degree in, crisis management by the time this is over. And I firmly believe it. Like we went through like a graduate level business class this year on how to crisis manage your business through a pandemic. Like I could not have imagined in all my years, like I've been, managing retail stores and properties and things for the better part of like 20 years now, coming up on 20 years. And like, I have never encountered anything that challenged me emotionally and mentally as much as this year did. It was it was just a mental hurdle to try to get up every morning and have like hope for what was going to happen that day, because you had no idea what was going to be thrown at you. You had no idea.
There was no planning. You had your 20 some years, and there was no getting ready for something like this.
No, and there's nothing you can do. Like, you cannot prepare. Like, if this happens again, oh, please, Lord, please let it never happen again.
Stop.
But if something like this ever happened again, like, I'd have some idea, but everything is different, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even like I can say, like, oh, I'm completely prepared for a pandemic now, because the next pandemic might be different, or the next crisis might be different. What I feel like I'm prepared for is understanding that there is no preparation, and that I kind of have to like relax and roll with it, and I can't fight against something that I can't change. That was the huge lesson, I think, as a business owner, is like, there are certain things that you are not going to be able to change. Business owners are used to, like, I told somebody years ago that like business owners are all the people who don't like to be told what to do by other people, right? So like, that's why we own our own business. I think I was talking to some city official about it, because I was like, you can't tell a business owner to do something. Like, we're contrary, right? We're gonna be like, no, we have a better way of doing it. That's why we start businesses, right?
Yeah.
We're crazy like that. And so looking at it from that perspective, like, you have to, like, we are so used to like operating on our own front, and then we had to all kind of like stop for a minute and consider like, oh, I don't have any guidelines for this. I don't have any, like, I'll creative my way out of it for the most part, but like, I can't make cash appear.
Yeah.
Right? And people aren't buying, and people aren't going out. I mean, the restaurants alone, man. Ugh. Like, we were able to adapt, right? Because we have stuff that can be purchased and taken places that isn't food-based, that isn't edible, that can be wiped down by someone, right? So like, people are less afraid of that. But like, I have such compassion for my friends who own businesses. It's gotta be, I know it's incredibly rough. I've watched them struggle this past year, and the numbers are they did the best they could, and they did amazing jobs. Especially when, like, I saw, Foodie was doing a pantry, right, where they had like selling goods that they could get a hold of that we couldn't for a while. Remember, there's all that food shortage, so they were selling like chicken and milk and butter and yeast and all that stuff. Like, so you could like get a hamburger and then like a side of yeast to take home with you to bake some bread. Like, it was kind of an amazing adaptation.
It was. Who thought that we'd ever see that?
If you had told me that, I would have been like, that is the craziest thing you have ever said, Ted. Like, no one is going to be selling yeast at a restaurant. If
I was writing a book, you'd say that's fiction.
It would be terrible fiction, right? You'd be like, oh, at least be realistic. Like, that's not how pandemics work. And when the pandemic started, Ken laughed at me because I watched the movie Pandemic, that pandemic movie, right? And I was like, I had so many notes for it after this. I was like, one, way too fast. Everything got solved way too fast in that movie. But also, things weren't as bad. Like, it was much more boring, right? Like, the pandemic was like a slow boil of terrible and malaise and depression and but there wasn't trash piled up in the streets. People weren't shooting each other in their apartments. Like, like, the drama of it wasn't as big, but like, the economic impact wasn't as dwelled upon in the movie. And I think that's where the real potential Armageddon is for this, right? Within the communities that had little to no government support, like, people of color, like, who own businesses, and people who had just purchased their businesses, and people who were just starting out. I mean, they had a really difficult time and may not be able to restart, right? So there's a lot of issues there of like whole sectors of business that have been wiped out potentially. And that's the part that when I watched that movie, I was like, yeah, they don't talk about that at all. It's all very like about the science and about the government and about crime. But like, that was always going to be part of the story. We just weren't prepared for it as a country because we don't think that way. Because it is a little bit like wonky. Right?
Yeah.
It's not it's not as sexy to talk about like a balance sheet and a P&L report for a business being wildly affected.
Right.
So.
Well, you made it.
We did.
We did. We made it through, and now it's going forward. And I guess, like you say, so many businesses having trouble. It's important to remember the restaurants and the businesses starting out, and not to forget that now.
And it's still like, it is still slow. Like, we're still 20% off coming into this year, right? You know, our first quarter has been 20% off. Not shocked by that, right? Because a lot of people were waiting for their government funding to come in. So there's a lot of economic insecurity coming into the year. We did really good in December. Like, people spent a lot of money with us and supported us through then. So I think there's a lot of like that, you know, rubber banding a little bit.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're making it. Like, we've got government funds. We're doing okay. But like, I think about a lot of the restaurants and stores that don't have as much capacity for that hit, right? 20% is a lot. Yeah. You know, we were doing, 5 to 10% growth rates. We were 16% up this time last year. So I'm 36% down based on my numbers from the previous, right? So think about that. So like, we're, the numbers are pretty astonishing, right? When you look at those kind of things. It's not terrible. It's not going to kill us. But if we did this for 2 years, 3 years, like, we'd be dead in the water, right? The help's going to dry up eventually. So like, I'm encouraging people who can to continue to think about and spend locally, try to avoid like as much of the online shopping as you can. But we still deliver. We'll still deliver anything you want to your doorstep. If you're still afraid to go out, like, totally get that. It's a legitimate worry and fear.
Yeah.
We're doing outdoor classes as soon as the weather allows, which is hopefully next month.
Yes, very soon.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be lovely pretty soon. So that the springtime out here in the courtyard will be lovely. Everything's adaptation, and we're debating on summer camps and all that kind of stuff for the kids this year. Like, we had to skip them last year. Oh, that hurt. That was a big old blow. But it's all about adaptation, and it's like a slow roll of adaptation, right? I don't know what the next adaptation is going to be, honestly.
No, we started off talking about how we thought maybe 2 months at the most. So yeah, we continue to just it's
sweet summer children. We had no idea what we were talking about.
I could have patted you on the head and said, "Dee Dee, no."
Oh, Dee Dee, no. Past Dee Dee had no idea what future Dee Dee knows.
Yeah.
But I think it's changed me. I think it's changed me for the good as a business owner, because I think I'm much more appreciative of what I have, right? So like, I ended this year very grateful that we made it, very grateful for the staff we have, very grateful for the community that we have, right? Like, there are a lot of my friends who are in other states and in other areas that their communities just dried up. Like, and largely it wasn't even like the community didn't want to support them. It was just the industries that they were in, tourism based or what have you, dried up very quickly. And so no one had any money to support each other, right? And we really luck out.
We're fortunate.
We're really fortunate. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of people in our community that have the money and are, commuting up north who are staying home. So people maybe not, didn't explore downtown. We're exploring downtown because now we have time. Yeah. I met so many people that lived here out in Spotsylvania for like 2 or 3 years, and we're like, yeah, this is the first time I've had time to come downtown Fredericksburg because I commute every day. And I thought, what an interesting bonus to this, that you actually get to like wander around downtown Fredericksburg now.
See where you live.
Yeah. That's my hope for this, is that we're going to end up with less people commuting up north, more people staying in the community all day. I think
seems like it.
It'd be so beautiful for people. Because, our community is amazing.
It is amazing.
There's so much stuff to do.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Well, you've been awesome. Thank you. And I look forward, we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.